Commander Elise Kane sat quietly in the dimly lit briefing room of the Galactic High Command. The walls hummed softly with the sounds of distant ships moving through space. Around her, officers and scientists whispered quietly, waiting for the meeting to begin. Today was not just another mission. It was a mission that could change the future of the galaxy. The galaxy was large and full of many species. For centuries, these species had worked together to keep peace and progress. But recently, there was a serious problem. Many of the allied species were facing a sharp decline in their birth rates. Their populations were shrinking. This was a threat not only to their worlds, but to the entire coalition that kept the galaxy stable. High Command had been watching this problem closely. They had studied many possible solutions, but nothing worked well. Now they were turning to a surprising choice: humans. Humans were known across the galaxy for their strong adaptability and unique biology. Despite being a young species compared to others, humans had survived and thrived in many harsh environments. Elise listened carefully as the commanding officer began to speak. "Commander Kane, your team has been selected for a sensitive and urgent mission," the officer said, his voice steady and serious. "You will travel to the edge of our known space to a planet called Virelia. This is a newly discovered world, home to a species called the Virelians." The room was silent. Elise's mind raced. The Virelians were mysterious and little was known about them, but their biology was believed to hold a key to solving the fertility crisis. "Your task," the officer continued, "is to work with the Virelians and test the possibility of interspecies genetic compatibility. In other words, to see if humans and Virelians can produce offspring or help improve fertility through scientific methods." Elise felt a mixture of excitement and pressure. This was a mission unlike any other. The fate of many species depended on their success. "We expect full cooperation with the Virelian leaders," the officer added. "This mission is delicate. You will face cultural challenges and scientific uncertainties. You must be careful, respectful, and ready to adapt." Elise nodded. She had led difficult missions before, but none as important or as delicate as this one. "Understood, sir. We will do everything we can to succeed." After the briefing, Elise met with her team. Scientists, medical experts, diplomats, and security officers gathered around. Everyone knew the stakes. Dr. Marcus Lee, the lead biologist, spoke first. "This is a new field for all of us. We are exploring unknown territory in genetics and biology. We will need to study the Virelian DNA carefully and look for ways to safely test compatibility. Safety is the priority," Elise said firmly. "We must ensure no harm comes to anyone, human or Virelian." A communications officer named Lyra smiled nervously. "I've been learning the Virelian language and culture. Building trust will be as important as the science." Elise smiled back. "Good. We will need that trust. This mission isn't just about science. It's about building a bridge between two very different species." Days later, their ship, the Star Voyager, prepared for launch. The crew boarded with a mix of hope and nervousness. The ship's engines roared to life, and they lifted off into the dark vastness of space. As the stars streaked past the windows, Elise stood on the bridge watching the endless black and glittering lights. She thought about the future, not just for humans, but for all the species of the galaxy. The journey to Virelia would take weeks. During that time, the crew studied everything they could about their new neighbors. Reports from distant probes showed Virelia was beautiful and full of life. Its people were peaceful but cautious. They had advanced technology but fragile biology. Elise gathered her team one evening. "This mission will test our limits," she said, "but I believe in all of you. Together we will face whatever comes. The galaxy is watching." The crew nodded, feeling a strong sense of purpose. As the Star Voyager approached Virelia, strange feelings filled the ship. Excitement mixed with uncertainty. The unknown lay ahead. Elise looked out at the planet glowing softly against the blackness of space. This was more than a mission. It was the beginning of a new chapter for humanity and for the galaxy. No one knew what the future would bring. But one thing was clear. Humans were ready to step forward and meet the challenge. The Star Voyager slowly entered the orbit of Virelia, a world glowing softly in the blackness of space. Commander Elise Kane stood on the bridge watching the planets surface through the large viewing window. The green and blue colors of vast forests and deep oceans filled her vision. It was a beautiful world, unlike anything she had ever seen. "Commander, we are ready for descent," said Lieutenant Jaron, the pilot, his voice steady but filled with excitement. Elise nodded. "Proceed when ready." The ship began its careful journey down through Virelia's atmosphere. Outside, strange plants stretched toward the sky, and creatures flew between massive trees. The air was thick with the scent of unfamiliar flowers even through the ship's sealed windows. Finally, the Star Voyager landed on a smooth clearing near a small city made of shining crystal structures. The ground hummed softly beneath the ship. Elise took a deep breath and prepared to step out. She and her team wore special suits designed to protect them while allowing them to breathe the local air. The air outside was cool and fresh, different from Earth's but pleasant. Around them, Virelian citizens had gathered. They were tall and slender, with shimmering skin that reflected light like delicate glass. Their eyes glowed faintly, and they moved with quiet grace. The Virelians did not speak in words like humans. Instead, they communicated with soft melodic sounds and subtle gestures. Their language was beautiful but hard to understand. A tall Virelian stepped forward. He wore a long robe woven with fine threads that caught the light. Elise felt the weight of the moment as he approached. "I am Salen," the Virelian said, his voice calm but curious. "Welcome to Virelia, travelers from another star." Elise bowed slightly. "I am Commander Elise Kane, and this is my crew. We come in peace and hope to work together for the good of both our peoples." Salen's eyes shimmered with something like hope. "We have heard of your kind. Humans are strong and adaptable. We have waited for help in these dark times." Elise smiled. "Then let us begin." The days that followed were filled with discovery and challenge. The humans and Virelians worked side by side in the laboratories. Dr. Marcus Lee led the scientific team, carefully collecting samples and running tests. "The Virelian biology is unlike anything we've seen," Marcus explained during a meeting. "Their cells regenerate quickly, but their reproductive systems are fragile. We need to understand how to help without causing harm." The Virelians showed great patience and kindness. They taught the humans about their world, their history, and their fears. Slowly, trust grew. Lyra, the communications officer, spent hours learning the Virelian language. She practiced the melodic sounds and gestures until she could hold simple conversations. One afternoon, Elise walked through the city with Salen. Crystal buildings rose around them like giant flowers. The streets were alive with quiet energy. Virelian children played in the sunlight, their laughter like soft music. "Your people face great risks," Elise said quietly. "We want to help, but this will take time." Salen nodded. "We know. We are ready to try." That evening, the humans gathered in their quarters. They talked about the mission and what lay ahead. "This is bigger than science," Elise said. "It's about hope. About two species finding a way to survive together," Marcus agreed. "We are learning from each other, and that makes us stronger." But not all was easy. Some Virelians were wary of the humans. They feared change and the unknown. Small protests formed outside the labs, with signs warning against mixing their species. Elise met with the Virelian Council to address their concerns. "We respect your culture and your people," she said firmly. "Our goal is to save lives, not to replace or harm. We need your trust." The council listened, their faces serious but thoughtful. After long discussion, they agreed to continue the cooperation but asked for careful monitoring and respect for all limits. Back at the lab, progress was slow but steady. Tests showed the beginnings of genetic compatibility, but there were still many risks. One night, as Elise reviewed the data, Lyra came rushing in. "Commander, you should see this." Together, They looked at the latest results. A small sample showed promising signs, human and Varelian cells responding well to the new biosynthetic mediator Marcus had developed. This could be the breakthrough we need, Marcus said quietly. Elise felt a surge of hope. The journey was far from over, but the first step had been taken. As the Varelian moons rose in the night sky, Elise stood outside, feeling the cool air on her face. She thought about the future, uncertain, but full of possibility. In this distant world at the edge of known space, two species had begun a new chapter. It was a chapter of trust, science, and hope, and for the first time in many years, the galaxy's edge seemed a little brighter. The lab on Varelia was quiet except for the soft hum of machines and the low voices of scientists working late into the night. Commander Elise Kane sat beside Dr. Marcus Lee, watching as samples of human and Varelian cells floated under powerful microscopes. Every detail mattered. Every discovery brought them closer to understanding whether two very different species could share more than friendship. "This is amazing," Marcus whispered, pointing to the screen. "Look here. The cells are responding to the biosynthetic mediator. They're communicating in a way we didn't expect." Elise leaned closer, fascinated by the glowing images. The mediator was a specially designed molecule meant to help human and Varelian DNA interact safely. It had taken weeks of trial and error to develop. "But there's still a problem," Marcus said, his face serious. "Some receptors on the cells don't match. If we try to combine them too soon, it could trigger immune rejection. That would be dangerous for both species." Elise nodded. "So we need to be patient and careful." The goal was simple but difficult: to find a way for human and Varelian genetics to work together without harming either side. This was not just science. It was a test of trust between two species at the edge of the galaxy. Meanwhile, the Varelian team worked alongside the humans, sharing knowledge about their biology. The Varelians' advanced understanding of bioengineering amazed the humans, but their reproductive system remained fragile. A small mistake could cause serious harm. One of the Varelian scientists, a woman named Sila, explained their concerns during a meeting. "Our species has evolved to depend on a delicate balance of proteins and signals. Any change could upset that balance. We fear losing what makes us unique." Elise listened carefully. "We respect that. We want to help without changing who you are." The two teams developed a plan to begin testing compatibility in controlled environments. Instead of direct contact, they would first use artificial wombs and synthetic cells to study how the genetic material interacted. Dr. Lee and Sila worked together closely. "By mixing small samples in a safe lab, we can watch for reactions and adjust the mediator," Marcus said. "It's like learning a new language, slowly, carefully." Days turned into weeks. Each morning brought new data, sometimes encouraging, sometimes frustrating. One day, Marcus called Elise urgently to the lab. "You need to see this." On the monitor, a cluster of cells glowed brightly, more stable than ever before. "This is the first time human and Varelian cells have formed a hybrid structure," Marcus said, a smile breaking across his face. "It means compatibility is possible." Elise felt a rush of hope. "But are there risks?" "Always," Marcus replied. "The immune systems still don't fully trust each other. We need more testing to ensure safety." While science advanced, the human crew also faced cultural challenges. Some Varelians remained uneasy about mixing with humans. Rumors spread in the city, and a few groups protested the experiments, fearing loss of identity. Elise met again with Salen, the Varelian ambassador. "There is fear among your people," she said. "How can we build trust?" Salen looked thoughtful. "We must show them that this is not about replacing our culture but saving it. We must be open and honest." Together they arranged public talks and meetings where humans and Varelians shared their hopes and fears. Slowly, the walls of mistrust began to fall. Back in the lab, a new challenge appeared. The team discovered that some human proteins caused a mild but dangerous reaction in Varelian cells. This reaction could cause inflammation, threatening the success of any hybrid. "It's a setback," Marcus said, rubbing his tired eyes. But not a defeat. He and Sila began designing a new version of the mediator, one that could block harmful proteins and allow safer interaction. It required more testing and time, two things they didn't have much of. Elise gathered her team. We are on the right path. Every problem we face is a chance to learn. Our mission is not easy, but it is important. The nights were often long and filled with worry, but also with determination. The humans and Varelians worked side by side, united by a common goal. One evening, as Elise walked through the softly lit city, she saw groups of Varelians and humans sharing stories and laughter. She felt a deep sense of hope. No matter how hard the science became, the real strength was in their connection, in the belief that two different species could build a future together. At the edge of the galaxy, where stars shone cold and distant, a new light was growing. It was the light of understanding, of courage, and of life. The lab on Varelia buzzed with energy as scientists worked around the clock. Commander Elise Kane stood near the large observation window, watching her team carefully. Every day brought new challenges, but today felt different. Today they were closer to a breakthrough. Dr. Marcus Lee adjusted the controls on one of the machines. We've finally completed the new version of the biosynthetic mediator, he announced. This one should better block the harmful proteins and help the human and Varelian cells work together more smoothly. Elise nodded. Let's run the tests carefully. We cannot afford any mistakes. The team placed hybrid cell samples into the artificial wombs, safe environments designed to support early growth without risking any living being. The machines hummed softly as sensors monitored every change. Hours passed. Then the data started to come in. Look at this, Marcus exclaimed. The cells are stabilizing. They're growing in ways we hoped but never expected. Elise felt a surge of hope. This was the first time the team had seen such positive signs. The future they dreamed of seemed closer. But just as hope grew, a warning appeared on the monitors. Commander, there's an immune response starting in sample 3, a technician reported nervously. It's mild, but if it worsens, the cells could be damaged. Elise's heart tightened. Can we stop it? Marcus frowned. We can try to adjust the mediator's formula in real time, but it's risky. After careful analysis, the team tweaked the formula and administered a new dose to the samples. Slowly, the immune reaction began to calm. The cells stabilized again. That was close, Elise said, exhaling deeply. We need to be more cautious. Days turned into weeks as the team refined their approach. Each test brought new data, new surprises, and new risks. But every step forward was a victory. Outside the lab, life on Varelia continued. The city buzzed with activity as humans and Varelians mingled. The initial fears and protests had quieted, replaced by curiosity and cautious hope. One afternoon, Elise walked through a marketplace filled with glowing plants and strange fruits. She stopped to watch children, both human and Varelian, playing games together. Their laughter echoed through the air. This is why we must succeed, Elise thought. For them. Back in the lab, personal relationships grew stronger too. Marcus and Sila, the Varelian scientist, worked late into the nights sharing ideas and dreams. Their respect for each other deepened, a symbol of the larger bond forming between their species. But the mission was not without danger. One morning, alarms rang through the Star Voyager's communication center. Police rushed to the bridge where security officers reported an incident. A group outside the city tried to sabotage our labs, the chief of security said. They are against the hybrid experiments and want to stop us. Elise's eyes narrowed. Who are they? They call themselves the Pure Ones, the officer explained. They believe mixing species is wrong. They want to keep their kind separate. Elise's mind raced. The peaceful cooperation they had built was fragile. This attack could destroy everything. We must protect the mission and keep the peace, Elise said firmly. Increase security and send diplomats to talk with the Pure Ones. The diplomats, including Lyra and Salen, worked hard to calm the tensions. They met with leaders of the Pure Ones listening to their fears and concerns. "We do not want conflict," Salen told them gently, "but we must think of our future. This research could save our people." Slowly, the message began to reach some of the Pure Ones, but others remained stubborn, unwilling to accept change. Meanwhile, in the lab, a breakthrough came. The team managed to grow a small cluster of hybrid cells that showed the first signs of developing like an embryo. It was fragile and tiny, but it was real. "We have taken a giant step," Marcus said, eyes shining. "This means the future is possible," Elise smiled. "We must proceed with care. The risks are still high." But even as hope grew, the crew faced another setback. Some human volunteers who had participated in early, safe genetic compatibility tests began to show mild side effects. Fatigue, headaches, and slight immune reactions made the doctors cautious. Elise held an emergency meeting. "We cannot ignore these signs," she said. "We must prioritize the health of everyone involved." The team paused the human testing to study the causes. It was a difficult decision, but the right one. "We will find a way," Marcus promised. "Science always finds a way." As the days passed, Elise found herself thinking about the meaning of their mission. It was more than science or politics. It was about survival, about hope, and about the strength of two very different species coming together. One evening, standing on the balcony of the Star Voyager, Elise looked up at the stars, shining above Varelia. The journey was far from over, but she believed in the crew, in the Varelians, and in humanity's ability to overcome. The galaxy was watching, and at the edge of known space a new future was being born, one filled with promise, struggle, and courage. Morning light touched the crystal towers of Varelia as the day began. Commander Elise Kane stood in the main laboratory, watching as Dr. Marcus Lee and Scylla prepared for the most important trial of their mission yet. After weeks of careful testing, they were ready to grow the first full hybrid embryo inside a controlled, artificial chamber. "This isn't just a test," Elise said softly. "It's history." "Yes," Scylla agreed, her glowing eyes focused. "If this succeeds, it could change everything." The small chamber was made of transparent glass-like material. Inside, carefully balanced nutrients and biosynthetic mediators surrounded a tiny group of hybrid cells. Everything had to be perfect: temperature, light, chemical levels. One mistake could destroy it. Marcus carefully sealed the chamber. "Begin monitoring." Sensors came to life, tracking every movement inside. On the screens, the embryo began to divide, grow, and respond. For the next few hours, the lab remained silent except for the soft beeping of the machines. The hybrid life form grew steadily. Not too fast, not too slow. Balanced. Then suddenly the monitors flashed red. "Warning! Cell disruption in Quadrant 3, a technician called out. Elise rushed forward. "What's happening?" Scylla checked. "The data. The Varelian protein response is dropping, the balance is failing." Marcus adjusted the mediator mixture. "We can still stabilize it if we act now." It was a tense few minutes. The embryo wavered. The team watched in silence, hoping the changes would work. Slowly, the warning lights faded. The signals returned to normal. Elise let out a breath. "That was close." "Too close," Marcus said. "But we learned something. The hybrid needs more human support cells in the early stage. It's like it wants both of us." By evening, the embryo was stable again. The team recorded the results and added new protocols. Even a small success was a big step forward. Outside the lab, the news spread quickly. Both humans and Varelians were excited. Many cheered for the progress. Others watched with doubt. The leader of the Pure Ones, a Varelian named Dreval, appeared on public channels. "We must protect our kind," he said. "This hybrid project is dangerous. What happens if it changes who we are?" Elise knew they had to respond carefully. "Arrange a peaceful meeting with Dreval," she told Lyra. "We cannot move forward without addressing his fears." 2 days later, the meeting took place in a neutral hall made of smooth stone and soft light. Elise, Marcus, Salen, and Scylla sat on one side. Drival and 3 of his advisors sat on the other. "You have come far," Drival began. "But at what cost?" "Our goal is not to erase your people," Elise said calmly. "We're trying to help your species survive. Without new solutions, Varelians may not be able to reproduce in the future." Scylla added, "We are not creating a new species. We are building a bridge, a future where our children can live." Drival's expression was firm. "And what if these children are not fully Varelian? What if they change everything?" Marcus spoke with care. "Change is part of life. But we promise we will never move forward without your people's choice." The meeting ended without agreement, but it was peaceful. Drival left with more questions than answers. Still, Elise saw something in his eyes. Not anger, but uncertainty. That night, Elise stood on the balcony of her quarters. Salen joined her. "You handled it well," Salen said. "Even if Drival disagrees, he listened." "Do you think your people will accept this future?" Elise asked. Salen looked at the stars. "Some will. Others will need time. But change always begins with a few brave steps." Back in the lab, the embryo continued to grow. It was now in its second phase, showing signs of early organ development. The monitors showed no rejections, no warning signs. "We may have done it," Marcus said one morning, amazed. "The first fully stable hybrid embryo in the galaxy." The news spread through both Earth Command and the Varelian Council. Messages of support came in, along with new funding and research offers. Yet even in success, Elise felt the weight of responsibility. "We've started something big," she said during a meeting. "Now we have to guide it with care." The council agreed to allow continued research, but with strict oversight. Every step had to be approved. Transparency became the rule. The Star Voyager's crew began preparing for Phase 2, raising a hybrid in a nurturing environment. This meant ethical discussions, new equipment, and trained caregivers, both human and Varelian. As Elise walked through the lab one final time, that evening she paused before the glowing chamber. Inside, a life form floated gently, a symbol of peace, science, and hope. At the edge of the galaxy, where 2 worlds once stood apart, something new was being born. Not just a hybrid, but a future. The small chamber glowed softly in the laboratory as the hybrid embryo continued to develop. Commander Elise Kane stood nearby, watching the monitors with quiet hope. The embryo was no longer just a scientific experiment. It was the first life that represented the future of 2 species coming together. The team had prepared everything carefully. Artificial wombs, advanced life support systems, and biosynthetic environments made sure the hybrid would grow safely. But the true test would be what came next, nurturing this new life beyond the lab. Dr. Marcus Lee and Scylla, the Varelian scientist, worked closely every day, monitoring the embryo's progress. "Its cells are strong," Marcus said one morning. "But the development is slower than expected." Scylla nodded. "That is natural. Hybrid biology is complex. We must be patient." Elise called a meeting to plan the next phase. "Once the embryo reaches the proper stage, we will need to transfer it to a nurturing environment where it can grow like a child." The idea both excited and worried the team. The challenge was immense, raising a being that was both human and Varelian, with 2 cultures, 2 bodies, and 2 sets of expectations. The Council of Varelia had agreed to support the project, but insisted on strict care and respect for the hybrid's well-being. The nurturing environment was ready, a specially designed facility that combined human and Varelian technology. It had quiet rooms with soft light, gentle sounds, and advanced medical systems to respond instantly to any need. When the day came to transfer the embryo, the entire crew gathered in the lab. The moment was solemn and filled with hope. Marcus carefully moved the embryo from the small chamber into the nurturing pod. Soft monitors surrounded the pod, tracking every heartbeat, every movement. Elise placed a hand on the pod's surface. "Grow strong," she whispered. Days passed. The hybrid embryo grew steadily, showing new signs of development, tiny pulses of energy, slow formation of basic organs. The team celebrated each small success, but remained cautious. They knew the future was still uncertain. One afternoon, as Elise walked through the facility, she saw Salen speaking with a group of Virelians and humans. They were sharing stories about culture, hopes, and fears. Elise joined them. "It's important we teach the future," she said. "This hybrid is not just science. It's a bridge between us." The group nodded. Lyra smiled. "We are all learning to understand each other better." But not everyone was ready to accept change. One morning, a message arrived from Drevel, the leader of the Pure Ones. His tone was firm. "Commander Kane, we request to observe the nurturing process. The future of Virelia depends on transparency." Elise agreed. "We will invite you. This is about trust." Dreval's presence was tense but respectful. For the first time, he saw the hybrid not as a threat, but as a fragile being deserving care. During his visit, he asked many questions about the science and ethics. The answers came patiently from Marcus, Scylla, and Elise. At the end of the visit, Drevel surprised them. "This is difficult to accept, but I see now that you mean no harm." It was a small step toward peace. Meanwhile, the hybrid embryo grew stronger. The team noticed small signs of personality developing, subtle changes in energy patterns and responses to light and sound. "It may be early," Scylla said, "but life is life. We must prepare for what comes next." The question of identity became real. What would this new being become, human, Virelian, both? Elise often wondered about the child's future. She hoped it would live without fear, welcomed by both species. One quiet night, as stars glittered above Virelia, Elise stood outside the nurturing facility. She looked at the sky and whispered, "May you find your place in this universe, the car." Future was unknown but filled with hope. Two species had joined hands to create something new. It was a story of courage, trust, and the beginning of a new life. A life that could change the galaxy forever. The nurturing pod glowed gently in the heart of the lab as the hybrid life form opened its eyes for the first time. "Commander Elise." Kane stood quietly nearby, watching with a mixture of awe and hope. This small being was the first living symbol of unity between humans and Virelians, a bridge between two worlds. The hybrid's eyes shone with a soft, shimmering light, reflecting both human curiosity and Virelian wisdom. Around the lab, the team watched in silence, their hearts beating faster. Dr. Marcus Lee smiled. "It's incredible. The life signs are stable. The hybrid is responding to its environment." Scylla, the Virelian scientist, reached out and gently touched the pod's surface. "It is alive, and it is our future." Elise felt a warmth spread through her chest. "This is more than science," she said softly. "It's hope." The next days were filled with careful observations. The hybrid learned quickly, reacting to sound, light, and touch. The team adjusted its environment to support growth, mixing human and Virelian elements in every way possible. Despite the progress, challenges remained. The hybrid's health was strong, but its identity was still a mystery. What kind of being would it become? How would humans and Virelians accept it? Elise held a meeting with the council and the crew. "We must prepare both species to welcome this child. Acceptance will not come easily." Lyra, the human diplomat, nodded. "We will hold forums and cultural exchanges. We need to build understanding." Salen, the Virelian ambassador, added, "And teach our people that this child carries both our hopes." Even Drevel, the leader of the Pure Ones, sent a message. "Though I once opposed this project, I now see its value. I will help spread peace." Elise smiled at the change. That is what we all want: peace and a future. The hybrid grew stronger each day. It began to move inside the pod, responding to gentle touch and voices. The scientists documented every moment, amazed by its progress. One evening, Elise stood near the pod alone, speaking softly. "You are the future, a new beginning for two worlds." As time passed, plans formed for the hybrid's next stage, transferring it from the pod to a specially designed habitat where it could grow and learn safely. The habitat combined Earth's warmth and Virelia's light, a perfect balance for the hybrid's development. On the day of transfer, the entire crew gathered once more. The mood was a mix of celebration and nervous hope. Marcus carefully moved the hybrid from the nurturing pod into the habitat. Sensors and care systems surrounded the space, ready to respond to any need. Elise touched the control panel. "Welcome, home," she whispered. The hybrid explored its new surroundings, curious and bright. Its small hands reached out to touch colors and textures, a sign of awakening. In the weeks that followed, humans and Virelians alike visited the habitat. Children from both species came to play and learn, guided by mentors who taught respect and friendship. The hybrid became a symbol, not just of science but of unity. The pure ones slowly softened, inspired by the growing peace and cooperation. Elise knew the journey ahead would still have challenges, but she believed in the strength of this new bond. One night, as stars twinkled overhead, Elise stood outside the habitat. She looked at the hybrid playing quietly with a Virelian child. A new future was beginning, one built on trust, hope, and courage. The galaxy was vast and full of mysteries, but here on Virelia, something rare and beautiful had been born. Story of two species coming together, facing fears and creating life. A story of humanity, hope, and new beginnings.